Hi everyone, this is Dan and this is Thin Blue Line by Mike Baron, Joseph Arnold, and Jeff Slemons. This is a crowd-funded comic book and a very unique crowd-funded comic book in itself. And obviously this is police themed, and obviously by the name, for those of you who are in the know as far as police stuff is concerned, this is clearly well, at least on the outside, a very pro-police type of comic book here. But what's also very interesting about Thin Blue Line is the artist, Joseph Arnold, is in fact a full-time police officer. So I don't go too much in here, that's his sort of caricature. But he actually works as a police officer in his community, which is actually very impressive. Because I have friends who work in law enforcement, and it's a legit job. You got some long ass hours there. So if he drew this whole book, and even if it was just pencils, while he was doing full-time law enforcement, that is extremely impressive. Like, I'm very impressed by that, because law enforcement is it's not easy work. It's pretty can be very intense. And obviously, you know, life endangering, right? As we will see as we jump further into this book. But one thing I did want to mention, someone emailed me from the Jawbreakers review that I didn't go over the goodie pack that came with that campaign. And they were right. I forgot about it just because I kind of stopped going over the extras in these crowdfunding campaigns. But with this book, I'll make an exception just because I believe this book, from just looking at it, probably had a lot of first-time crowdfund backers, so they may not realize that they get this right. And you should have gotten this. I think I just got the standard tier, so you should have gotten all these extra goodies right here. Those who backed at a higher rate might get a lot more than this, but let me show you. This is the bag and board that it came in, and then let me get this. Come on, you get out of here. So this is a little advertisement here for some more of Mike Baron stuff. Looks like he's doing a supernatural western. Okay, that sounds pretty cool. I might jump on that one. And then looks like American southern border is a war zone. Okay, this is a little bit more politically motivated of the time kind of comics. So, which I will go over Mike Baron a little bit here. And then we got a really sweet challenge coin right here. This is actually pretty sweet. Like, wow, this is a nice quality. Let me see, I'm gonna bust this out right here. What the heck? Oh, there's a slip right here. Oh, okay, that's interesting. But yeah, this is dope. Yeah, there you go. There's the classic Thin Blue Line flag right there. I remember the first time I saw this flag, and I didn't know what it represented, but I actually got slightly annoyed when I first saw it, just because personally, and this is just me, I don't like the American flag being messed with in any way, period. I just like the American flag. Once I kind of figured out what it meant, I was kind of okay with it. But even to this day, I still, you know, like, I get it. And, you know, no hate for law enforcement or police people. Just there's a part of me that always gets a little I guess bugged by I guess alternate renditions of the country's flag here, and here it is in a sticker form. So you guys get a sticker, and then ooh, hey, look at that, trading cards. So usual typical crowdfunding fare right here. I am almost certain that I paid standard crowdfunding price for this, so that is $25 plus shipping. Which lately, at least for Comicsgate style books, that tends to be the price. Again, whether that is the appropriate price or not, I can't really say. I will say for this particular campaign, with the stuff that we got, I think this was appropriate, you know, for, like, they gave enough stuff to justify the price, in my opinion. Cover has like a nice matte finish. This is by, I believe, Sergio. Let me see, who's the Sergio Cariello? Cariello. I picked up this one. This is technically a alternate cover because the main cover is by Butch Guice, right here, which was pretty cool, but I just thought this one kind of popped a little bit more. Had a bit more of a Resident Evil vibe. In general, maybe that's just because I grew up playing Resident Evil 2 like way too much. The artwork in here has a bit of a Resident Evil vibe to it. But anyway, let's just get into the content. So spoiler-free review. Thin Blue Line's okay. I would say, first off, art. So Joseph Arnold, despite the praise that I gave him for doing the penciling, while also being a actual full-time law enforcement, he does need a little bit of work and improvement. I think some of his more action-oriented or dynamic pieces need a little bit more work, a little bit more oomph behind them. And I think he could definitely work on the consistency of his figures, especially faces and I would say, yeah, like faces and hair. Like he's got like I would say an interesting art style. There's like little bits of, I would say, Eastern influence, but it's definitely an American style. It's got a very indie feel to it. Like I feel like his art would fit in very well at like Alterna's lineup. Now I'm criticizing him, but don't take it too personally here. This is still very impressive for a first time out, for him, right? And based on what I read in the back of his background, I don't believe, even though he does come from an art background, I don't believe he does art full time. Obviously, he's a police officer. So, overall, still impressed, but he does need a little bit of work with the art, in my opinion. Mike Barron's writing. There's a few spots where I think he, Mike Barron has like spots where he's using music a lot in his writing. And I think it comes across well, like, in the head. Like, for me personally, music has never read well. And that's just some criticism there. There's some other dialogue points where I just kind of felt it was a little cheesy. And then there's a few, I would say, parts in this book that I think politically are a little bit too on the nose in terms of what Mike Barron's trying to accomplish here. I don't think it is necessarily bad. It's just a bit on the nose, and I think he probably could have had a more subtle way of accomplishing the same thing. But otherwise, what I do want to say, I just criticized him a lot there, but plot is actually very interesting, especially when you get to the second half. In fact, I got a little annoyed, so just as a heads up, the overall main plot of this book, which are these officers dealing with riots in the town that they live in, and especially obviously motivated by recent stuff in 2020, those kind of riots over here in the United States. The subplot that builds up and ends at the end to get you to pick up the next book is really, really interesting, and I really want to read more of that. But I have to go get the next book now, which I guess I would say, technically good job, Mike Barron. you jerk. You got me to go buy the next one now, because now I really want to see how that subplot ends. And I do want to see Joseph Arnold improve on his art too. But, overall, the actual main plot itself is it's okay. It's clearly based off what's going on around us. I would describe it as kind of like a better, I don't know if you guys have seen my review or read Richard C. Meyer's The Ballad of No, which was drawn by Kelsey Shannon, I believe. I did a review of that. I didn't personally like it because, again, it was too on the nose, and it was about all of the BLM riots of 2020. This book is basically the same thing from the perspective of the police officers, but it is better written, and it's also, I would say, more coherent in what it's trying to accomplish here. Some things are a little too on the nose, and I think, not to bag on Joseph Arnold, Kelsey Shannon has better art, but at least this is colored, so you got that right there. But anyway, that's enough of that. So spoiler-free review, it's okay. Totally pick it up. Subplot at the end, it gets really, really interesting. So I am kind of interested to see where this goes now. And I also do want to see if Joseph Arnold improves as an artist. But spoilers begin now. So we start off, the whole place is in Hagen, Illinois. And we're mainly following the life of this lady right here, Valerie Baca, who is an officer in the Hagen Police Department. And you also get this reoccurring character here, 3J, who is kind of like the sort of senior male officer who's kind of her, what's the right way to say it? Mentor, I guess is the right way to say it. And so she has a daughter. It appears to me that she is a single mom. So she does not have a husband or anything. And her daughter, they have a bunch of cute conversations, though some of it kind of distracts a bit from what's going on. A lot of it really is to develop and show who, Valerie is as a person. Let's jump ahead. So next day on the job, she gets sent to protect the mayor from all these crazy rioters who are losing it. Her and a bunch of other officers end up dragging the mayor out of the riot and protecting himself. And then you kind of find out that the mayor is, surprise, surprise, a bit of a piece of shit. So while he's having the police officers protect him, he's openly throwing them under the bus, saying he's going to defund the police, do a bunch of other usual lefty bullshit things that you typically hear from these mayors of these large cities. Not to get too political here, though it is hard not to, just because of the very nature of this book. And here's where things get interesting. So this character right here is Rupert Mannheim, is basically like a fusion of what is it? Oh man, my mind went blank. There's like a Hungarian like super billionaire in the background who's always like funding shady left-wing bullshit all over the world. God, why can't I remember his name? I can remember his face. This is like the worst part about me. But yeah, he's like a fusion of that dude and Rupert Murdoch. And he basically is a multi-billionaire, and he funds a lot of these riots and screws with people, and is also kind of messing with the politics in the background. And the subplot of him basically creating and fomenting all of this chaos is like super interesting. And I kind of like it because it's more of like, no offense to, the cop stuff, but it's more of like deep state kind of stakes, which are like, it's more intriguing because it's not like you're going to run into that in real life. So, well, hopefully not. But yeah, no, this subplot right here is dope. I really, really enjoy it. So I'm going to jump around a little bit here. They end up getting accosted by some gangsters. After they get ambushed by rioters and two of the cops end up getting murdered, these gangsters come in. And this is kind of funny. These gangsters basically hate the BLM rioters because they're basically, spoiled white college kids. So this gangster basically blows his brains out, which, this is a little bit at times rough. And I feel like Mike Baron could have done a better job on this whole scene in terms of the dialogue. But I totally understand his point here because it's genuinely my own experience, having met people both in, poor minority neighborhoods, whatever, ethnic neighborhoods, and the kind of people that tend to be involved in like Antifa and all this stuff. Usually people involved with that I have met, they tend to be just basically college brats. Whereas like people who are actually living in these neighborhoods have no idea. Most of them have never been to college because they don't have money to go to college or time or honestly interest. So this whole scene right here actually kind of gave me a bit of a chuckle. So anyway, one of the cops drags her over here. This scene actually was a little bit of a stretch. I never understood why he dragged her on her own. And then she just happens to run into her buddy who's handcuffed, right? So a little bit of, I would say a plot convenience right here. But she ends up, disabling the guy. So jump out of this stuff. And after that, this is an interesting scene. They run into these two dudes who, this is a little bit on the nose here. He's got a Ruger shirt and a Punisher shirt, and they have an American flag and a pickup truck. So obviously they're counter-protesters in this context. And she kind of shows her ethics and her dedication to what the purpose of law enforcement is, which is to maintain order and peace, right? So even though she's clearly trying to stop the rioters where she can, she also opposes these two guys because they're coming in sort of as militia to try and fight the other protesters or gangbangers or whatever. And she doesn't want the situation to escalate further. Now, there's some debate about like whether this is appropriate or not, but I know this from having friends in law enforcement. This is generally the view of a lot of them, at least that I've ever talked to, that you really don't want to have people coming in, these guys, you know, paramilitary, you know, militia types coming in, escalating the situation further, especially, you know, if they're coming out of town and they're not really from the area, right? Not saying passing any judgments on other stuff that have gone on, just kind of what people have told me from the law enforcement community and what my understanding is. Again, I'm not claiming to be 100% right in any of this. It's just what I've heard in my understanding of their viewpoint. So they end up able to get some of their buddies over to the hospital to get some treatment. And then they drop off the mayor to his wife, and she kind of wakes up the next day and it's all the same bullshit all over again. More rioting. They have to call in like more people right here. Eventually she has a sit down with her mentor, and her mentor basically tells him, it's like, you know what? I think I'm done here. I'm going to leave Illinois and head down to Kentucky and take a job there as chief. And I want you to join me. And, you know, she ends up making, after we have this dope-ass freaking plot twist right here with the trucker dudes trying to attack freaking Rupert Murdoch, or not Rupert Murdoch, at his home right here, which is fucking sick. She makes the decision that she's going to leave too, which I kind of found a little bit sad in a way. Just because, like, I get why she has to do what's right for her. But it's one of those things that has been kind of sort of bugging me and looking at what's going on with my country, not to get too political here, which is the mass migration of people all over the place from blue states to red states and red states to blue states. And I kind of wonder what the long-term ramifications of all this are, right? You know, probably for those of you in the foreign audience, you're like, who cares? But just something to think about right here. So overall, thought it was a pretty definitely good value, or at least enough value to justify the price for Thin Blue Line. I thought it was a very heroic effort by Joseph Arnold in terms of his drawing of this whole thing. And, you know, good writing by Mike Barron. Overall, enough to keep me interested. I think there's definitely a lot of room for improvement here on all phases. But, you know, it's not bad. I'm not going to call it great, just, you know, pretty good. Anyhow, guys, that's the video. Let me know what you think. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications. If you got any comments on Thin Blue Line, leave it down below, and I will see you next time.